We got a double preview for you today. We got the Michigan Wolverines heading out to Lincoln to face the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And then we got to talk about a game I'm so excited about. The Texas Tech Red Raiders heading out to Salt Lake City to face the Utah Utes and mighty Utah student section. But before we get into it, I'm George Wrighster, former NFL player, former college football player, college football analyst for CW, and here on George Wrighster's College Football Show. Not be any more excited about this matchup between Nebraska and the Michigan Wolverines. And Michigan comes into this game as a 2.5-point favorite. Over under 45.5. Michigan comes in at 2-1. Nebraska comes in 3-0 here. So we're going to start where we always start. Coach versus coach. Mr. Matt Rhule, who has to be able to beat who? Mr. Biff Poach. You might be like, wait. Isn't Sherrone Moore the head coach of Michigan? Yes, but he's suspended for this game. Because remember, he got a suspension as related to the Jim Harbaugh sign stealing, cheating national championship, that whole thing. That doesn't matter. I was just giving you the backstory. Now, normally, I drop a long analysis of what this coaching matchup is going to look like on a practical level and on a narrative level for both of the participating parties. But this is such a unique situation that there is absolutely nothing on the line for Biff Poggi as a person. He's a placeholder for Sherrone Moore. And even if there was a possibility for Sherrone Moore to take any heat for a loss in a game for putting himself in a position to be suspended again, like Michigan fans would have to confront the question of whether this juice was worth the squeeze for this punishment. And the juice in this case is a national championship that didn't get taken back. So yes, it was absolutely worth the squeeze. And the squeeze was about $20 million. Now there's nothing at risk for Sherrone Moore in this game. And there's nothing at risk for a 7-10 lifetime record independently wealthy Mr. Biff Poach. So he ain't got nothing on the line either. Now, on the other side of it, you got Matt Rhule. Everything is on the line for Matt Rhule because this is a home game. And he just smashed 2 cupcakes already. And you have a 5-star quarterback in Mr. Dylan Raiola that is supposed to make all Nebraska's hopes and dreams come true again. Now, he made the move last year to install Dana Holgorsen as their offensive coordinator and then full-time in this offseason. And you got yourself a podcast, Mr. Matt Rhule, to put his face and personality at the forefront of this program to try to grow the recruiting base and everything else. The last time that Rhule had the Wolverines in Lincoln, he took a 38-point home loss. And that was Nebraska's biggest margin of defeat at home since 2019. This is a must-play game in terms of respectability. This isn't a must-compete. This is absolutely a must-win for Mr. Matt Rhule. And that doesn't mean that Matt Rhule is out of a job if Nebraska loses this game because he ain't getting fired. Matt Rhule has shown on multiple occasions in college football that when you give him time to execute his vision, and he can get the team to trust it, then he has success. For Nebraska, the consequence of a loss here to a team without its head coach that already took a loss to Michigan is honestly internal. And now it's about the self-belief of Dylan Raiola when he's measured against what John Mateer has already done. Now, it's also about the self-belief of an extraordinarily loyal fan base over there in Lincoln, who probably more loyal than what the team deserves in recent memory, because there's been a lot of mediocrity in the last decade. And this is about Matt Rhule and his self-belief as a head coach, because he was given $40 million to go away in under 3 years into a 7-year contract with the Carolina Panthers when their owner David Tepper was like, yeah, nah, go on, get up out of here. Now, here Matt Rhule is, a few games into year 3, another 7-year contract, and everybody involved needs a reason to believe, and we'll see if he ends up delivering here. Now, let's look at these quarterbacks, because we got Dylan Raiola on one hand, and we got Bryce Underwood on the other hand. Now, both of these guys were 5-star big-time quarterbacks coming out of high school. And this season so far, Raiola has 829 yards, 8 touchdowns, no picks, clean start. You know, everything looks perfect right now. But now the schedule gets a little tougher. And then on the other hand, you got Bryce Underwood. He's looked pretty good at times. Now, he's over 600 yards passing, multiple touchdowns, interception last week versus Central Michigan. And his offensive coordinator, Chip Lindsey, he has leaned into the quarterback run. Now, if you've been following this program for quite some time, I talked a lot about Bryce Underwood in the offseason. I didn't think that Michigan should start him. I actually thought it might be mean in terms of punting on a shot at a college football playoff opportunity this year to set Michigan up for next year by starting him. And now I have seen Underwood play, and you can call me Kirk Ferentz because I love me a good punt, and I am punting on that previous take because Bryce Underwood has the chance to be very, very, very special. This is talking about in college football and beyond. And this is why I said that this year ain't Michigan's year. Next year, they are going to have a chance to be absolutely elite. You're going to have wide receivers lining up to go play for this dude in the transfer portal because he has the ability to hit receivers in stride. He's got the size and these growing pains. Honestly, they're not even that bad for a guy who's a true freshman. Now, they can always, if they get in trouble or an injury, turn to Mikey Keene in a pinch. But Michigan is going to put Underwood through the process that Nebraska put Dylan Raiola through last year. Baseline of what he's capable of and also learning where he needs support. And now that brings me to that man, Mr. Dylan Raiola. Now, here is what we know, is that the kid can make every single throw. He has a big arm. And the moment, honestly, has not been too big for him. Now, when he has a clean pocket, he looks like an NFL quarterback. When he has a skill advantage, he's an NFL quarterback. But when he gets dressed and looks in the mirror, he sees an NFL quarterback. A very specific Missouri-based NFL quarterback in terms of Patrick Mahomes, who he emulates. But so far, against Power 4 competition, with a competent pass rush, he does not have the escapability to create offense with his legs. And his numbers, they're not just different. They have absolutely fallen off a cliff. And even this year against Cincinnati, probably his best game versus Power 4 competition so far. He had 5.8 yards per completion on 33 completions. That ain't that great. Now, the encouraging thing about this is that he's using the underneath routes to supplement the fact that he isn't going to always be able to avoid the pass rush, but you aren't going to be able to nickel and dime in the Big Ten with the defenses the way he did against Cincinnati because they'll just drill down and screw down on you. But let's talk about these offenses and this defense because you got Michigan's offense versus Nebraska's defense because Michigan's offense under Jim Harbaugh was simple. Punch you in the stomach, body blow, body blow, body blow, and then you will eventually fall over from the ultimate liver shot. And Michigan's offense in the Sherrone Moore era is actually a little more complex. They punch you in the stomach until you try to cover your stomach, and then they throw an uppercut or a big haymaker to hit you up top. Now they're running backs, Alabama transfer, Justice Haynes. And then you got Jordan Marshall. They already have 86 combined touches and 79 of them are carries. Pounding the rock is exactly what Michigan wants to do. And it actually might be the perfect strategy against Nebraska's secondary that has been covering offenses like an absolute fog so far this season. Now the Cornhuskers have held their first three opponents who have been playing mostly from behind the entire time to 50% completions, 3 yards per pass attempt, and have held 3 straight teams under 70 passing yards. Now, it might be time to take that interim tag off of John Butler as defensive coordinator because doing that after losing Tony White to Florida State is incredibly impressive. Even if it did come against, yes, Akron and Houston Christian. Hey, I'm just saying. But you still did it. And now Cincinnati, they absolutely did some damage running their quarterback. So we'll see if Michigan gets Bryce Underwood on the move or if they will be depending on pushing Nebraska off the ball like they typically want to do with Michigan. Now let's look at Nebraska's offense versus Michigan's defense. People have pointed out that Dana Holgorsen, that he actually didn't change much at all as far as a run pass frequency in terms of last year. Now, outside of being much more likely to come out and pass on first down because they were super heavy run on first down last year. and he's having a better instinct for situational football by simplifying concepts. Now, Holgorsen, he at his core is an air raid guy. When you think of Nebraska football, you think of the ability to run the football. And that's where their identity is truly rooted in, is being able to get on the ground and run you over. So you can really expect an extremely heavy dose of Emmett Johnson. He already got the ball 32 times against Cincinnati as both a runner and then in the pass game as well. Now, this honestly is the perfect offense for Nebraska's quarterback, Dylan Raiola, because it leads to quick decisions and it limits pressures, which plays to his strengths. But the question is, how is Michigan's defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, going to handle it? Because Michigan struggled with Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer when they played against Oklahoma. But a lot of that was due to an escapability that Mateer has that Dylan Raiola does not have. But on the other side, Dylan Raiola is bigger than a few of the linebackers that are going to be blitzing him, including 6'3", 245-pound Jashawn Barnum. So what he lacks in terms of Raiola, in terms of escapability, he might make up for in just being big as hell and being hard to bring down. And Michigan, though, they have managed to force 7 turnovers in 3 games already this season. And the likelihood of that number growing, it absolutely increases a lot if Michigan can build a little bit of a lead and then force Nebraska into forced and must passing and obvious passing situations. They got to stay out of those. But let's look at the X factors of this game. One of them is going to be time of possession, because it's such a deceptive stat, because some teams, they score in chunk plays with great efficiency. And in Big Ten football, it matters a little bit, especially at the end of the game when you have to salt the game away. Because people will tell you, X factor, who won the time of possession? Time of possession is actually one of the least correlations between winning and losing. However, at the end of the game, time of possession does matter, especially when you're trying to salt the game away and you don't want the clock stopped. Now, the other X factor in this game, the biggest X factor in this game, honestly, you're going to laugh. It sounds boring, right? Because it is the biggest correlation between winning and losing in any stat in football. College football, NFL, high school football, it is the turnover margin. Because if you can win the turnover battle, you are going to win about 80% of your games. But I do think about which of these quarterbacks, Raiola and Underwood, with the ball in their hands in a close game or a tie game, which one of them is going to be the most effective? Which one won't blink? Hopefully, prayerfully, we will get to see that, because that means that we saw a really good football game. You guys can let me know in the comments, who do you trust more, Bryce Underwood or Dylan Raiola? But for my prediction in this game, I believe that the Michigan Wolverines go on the road, get a huge win, and then send Nebraska back to the drawing board. But it won't be completely, because Nebraska is definitely headed in the right direction. We have a ranked matchup. Number 17, Texas Tech, at number 16, the Utah Utes. This is the game that ESPN's college football game day should be at. I don't care if the game's at Fox and big noon kickoff in Salt Lake City. That is where they should be, at Rice-Eccles Stadium, in front of one of the greatest student body fan bases, the must in all of college football. Now, Utah is favored in this game by 3.5. The over-under in this game, 53.5. Now, the records, both of them are 3-0. This is going to be a nice, warm, elevated day in Salt Lake City, which I love this city. So y'all make sure that you get the chance to go to the Old Red Iguana. If you get a chance to get out there, some good Mexican food out in that joint. Utah's underrated for a food city. We got coach versus coach. Kyle Whittingham versus Joey McGuire. Utah's head coach, Kyle Whittingham, he is treating 2025 like the way people shooting hoops in their own driveway. You cannot end on a miss, and once you make that last shot, just take yourself back in the house, because you can't end on a miss. And it's not a secret that Whittingham has begun to think about life after college football in terms of coaching. He's been open about it, and he's been honest about it, and you guys can go on the Unafraid show here and look at the interview that I did with him in the offseason. Very frank and very candid about it. They have a coaching succession plan already in place out there in Salt Lake City. It's their defensive coordinator, Morgan Scout. They have had that in place for a few years. And he can even talk to me about it because that interview, he was very clear what's going to happen. He also said that he was not going to walk away after a 5-7 injury-riddled season where the legacy, in terms of Big 12 fans, they danced on Utah's great. Oh, Utah, we didn't want them in the Big 12 anyway. And see, look, they didn't even do well and everything else because they were picked to finish first in the conference last year. Now, Kyle Whittingham's biggest contribution to the 2025 iteration of the Utah Utes was to change the trajectory and long-term development in terms of their offensive strategy because their longtime offensive coordinator, Andy Ludwig, he was calling the plays, and then it had an instant impact because Andy Ludwig has been around so long. He was my offensive coordinator at one point in time when I was playing for the Oregon Ducks. That's how long this dude was around. And now they have Jason Beck, who came over from New Mexico, and now he's their offensive coordinator and brought dynamic athlete at quarterback Devin Dampier. And he's keeping the same plan of building 3 stars into monsters on the defensive end as well. Now, a lot of people wonder how you can have an eye on the future and still give your all in your current job, especially when that job involves so much change and necessary adaptability. But that's exactly what coaches ask of their athletes in 1 year who are going to be headed to the NFL draft. You got to keep your eye on the prize, but still at the same time know what's coming up next. Now, it ain't 1 foot out the door type of mentality. It's still 10 toes down until it is time for them to step away. Let's go over to Texas Tech for a minute because I made a little bit of a stir last year when I added Joey McGuire to my annual head coach's pressure list. Not hot seat, pressure list. Now, I don't even know what Texas Tech fans were actually so mad about, though, because it was a sign of respect. I was saying that expectations should be higher for Texas Tech than their annual 4 to 5 wins in the Big 12. And for a coach that everybody in Texas has been vouching for since he left Cedar Hill to go coach tight ends at Baylor, yes, there were higher expectations. And now with the emergence of their big-time booster, Cody Campbell, as a talent-collecting mega donor, it is giving the Red Raiders access to more the trench players, which are hard to get because they are able to buy them, and secondary talent than honestly that they have ever had before. And now that pressure to succeed is going to be as high as ever. And Joey McGuire, dude is a fantastic motivator. And he also embraces what most coaches should, which is the CEO model. And he landed one of the top offensive coordinators to replace Zach Kitley in terms of Mr. Mark Leftwich. And he fired Tim DeRuyter as his defensive coordinator and added Houston's Shill Wood. And he ran one of the Big 12's most physical and frustrating units in 2014 because Houston was winning games with no damn offense because their defense was stifling people. But now let's look at these quarterbacks. You got Barron Morton, who has over 900 yards this year, 11 touchdowns and only 1 interception. And last game against Oregon State, over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. He is being absolutely lights out right now. Then you got Devin Dampier, who's over at Utah, transfer quarterback from New Mexico. Now, he has over 600 passing yards right now, 7 touchdowns as well. And he's a real QB run value adder as well. Because last week at Wyoming, 530 passing yards, and then 86 rushing yards as well. Efficient and no turnovers. Now, Devin Dampier is a special college athlete. And there's no reason to get into whether it's going to translate into the next level because that ruined the fun of Khalil Tate over there in Arizona. Just enjoy what you got right now. Now, it also made us expect more Kyron Drones over there at Virginia Tech than he has been able to give us, to be honest. But you should watch for guys like Byron Brown over there at USF and Devin Dampier and just enjoy the excitement that they bring and the wins that they bring in college football. Now, going back to high school, Dampier was a high-profile Arizona high school player that got notoriety for beating what people thought was an unbeatable team in the state championship in 2021. And my son's team in high school, Sierra Canyon, they got a chance to play him that year, and the same electric dual threat stuff that he's doing right now on film, he's already and always been doing. Now, he's always also been prone to making some mistakes and then immediately making up for that mistakes with a big play. He's got some Cam Ward energy. The only difference is that he ain't as tall as Cam Ward, and Cam Ward has a little bit better of an arm. Actually, I got something for you. If you want to understand the full Devin Dampier experience, look no further than his play last week against Wyoming. Dude had an unforced fumble, picked it up, and immediately threw a dart for a touchdown. I mean, it was a difficult play, and you were like, whoa, what are you doing? Oh my God, never mind. Threw a touchdown. His processing is high. He knows what he's doing, and that's fun. For Texas Tech, we got Barron Morton. And I went into 2025 considering him an above average link in this offense, not the weak link, but a guy that hasn't always pushed the ball downfield in a way that the Red Raider fans have needed him to, or what they wanted since they had Patrick Mahomes. Now, I know that the competition has been awful for Texas Tech. We can't judge them exactly for what they are. But at the same time, Barron Morton is doing exactly what I wanted him to do. He's averaging 13 plus yards per completion against Oregon State last week. Now, the bad news for Texas Tech is that Morton has been dealing with a little bit of an injury, but all reports are that he should be fine. And it's not like he's asked to run very much anyway. And even though a Mac Leftwich offense looks better when your quarterback run is a potential option. Now, Morton, the kid, has been at Texas Tech for 5 seasons. They could have went in the transfer portal when Nico Iamaleava was transferring, but they know they stuck with him. They believed. And that is rare in modern college football. We're talking about a kid who battled Maverick McGuire, and he took over when Tyler Shuck's injury kept him off the field and then led that to make him transfer to Louisville. Now, he's an easy guy to root for in the portal era, even if it benefits greatly from Texas Tech's resources. But now let's look at these offenses versus these defenses. Let's look at Utah's offense versus Texas Tech's defense. Because Utah's offense, their offensive coordinator, Jason Beck, he has a fantastic story. And it might feel like the dude came out of nowhere because he has existed within the Bronco Mendenhall coaching system at several different destinations. And this is really his first time out on his own at a major university, which just so happens to be the rival of his alma mater, BYU. So don't be surprised if Kalani Sitake leaves to go to UCLA or Virginia Tech or anywhere else if Jason Beck's name is not the one that is called. Beck's work with Devin Dampier isn't the only time that he's helped maximize a quarterback's potential and their skill set, because he's also worked with Taysom Hill, Ben Kirk, and Bryce Perkins as well. So what does this offense look like? You're probably wondering. It is a run first, no huddle spread. It marries both tempo and physicality in what I like to call the power spread. And then when you add the tempo to it, and when you have an athletic quarterback running it, it can produce special results. Now, the question is, will it hold up against better competition than Beck faced when he was in the Mountain West, or than a shell of a Utah team that the Utah Utes ended up playing last season? Now, the question is, will Beck's offense hold up against better competition than he faced in the Mountain West? Because this Texas Tech defense, it includes 5 of the best D-line transfers that money could buy. And the early dividends from those 5 players, led by David Bailey and Romello Height, are 9.5 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, and a fumble recovery. And a pick 6. So yes, that money is being well spent, and they're seeing the dividends, and they're feeling real good about it. Come on, man. We all know level of competition matters, but production, it is still production. You got to play whoever is on the opposite side of you. And Utah's best hope is to be physical up front and stay out of obvious pass rush down. Now let's look at Texas Tech's offense versus Utah's defense. Because Texas Tech's offensive coordinator Mark Leftwich against Utah head coach in waiting, Mr. Morgan Scalley, it is such a fascinating matchup because Utah's defense took the biggest step back in 2024, and they definitely weren't helped by their struggling offense. But some of these numbers have nothing to do with the offense at all. 24 sacks, the worst mark for Utah since 2017, and 138 missed tackles, the worst for Utah since 2016. But so far this year, this defense looks much improved. John Henry Daly, dude already has 5 sacks all by himself, and Logan Fano is taking up a ton of blocking attention as well. Utah, they run a traditional 4-3, and they trust their defensive backs to be disciplined in coverage and to be able to come up and tackle as well, because there has never been a big need for Utah to be deceptive on defense in order to make plays. They just play fundamental football, gap discipline, be where they're supposed to be, and tackle the football. Now, Utah, they struggled at times in the Pac-12 against, the air raid teams that Mike Leach put out. But that's not exactly what Texas Tech runs, because they had success against Lincoln Riley, even with Caleb Williams. So they can handle the air raid. But Mark Leftwich, the offensive coordinator, he will definitely have all 5 eligible receivers running purposeful routes as many times as possible. And he wants to give those receivers the freedom to attack in space, just like the air raid. Now, he's also going to move players around and try to attack perceived weak spots. And he's also going to look to get these safeties out of position for some potential big plays. Now, on the Utah side, Utah needs Teo Johnson and Nate Ritchie to be extra disciplined in coverage this week, especially when Texas Tech has 11 different players with multiple receptions averaging 10 plus yards per catch this season. But now let's get into X Factor before we pick the game, because the easy thing to say that would be that Devin Dampier, the quarterback for Utah, is the X Factor. But the truth is that Utah will only go as far as their running backs take them, and this ridiculously good offensive line, because their running backs, Wayshawn Parker and Nakiri Rogers, they have 440 plus yards on offense and 7 touchdowns already this season. And Utah's offensive line, Lord have mercy, them dudes are good. They're giving them a lot of lanes to run through. They ran over UCLA, and Utah needs to shorten this game and limit the possessions and score as many times as they can, because that's going to put all sorts of pressure on Texas Tech, because that NIL money that Texas Tech spent, they are going to want a payment on that back if they are not able to hold up against this Utah offensive line. But the crowd at Rice-Eccles Stadium could be extra engaged in this game and ramp up that physicality just that much more. For Texas Tech, middle linebacker Jacob Rodriguez is about to matter as much as he has ever mattered. He's going to have to be able to fill gaps and, play side, and then deal with Jason Beck's offense and be able to tackle Devin Dampier in space, which is harder to do because the boy is slippery than a can of oil. They need Rodriguez to make plays, whether that's punching the ball out, stopping a 3rd and 2 or short yardage. Because for Texas to take the ultimate next step, they have to win a game on defense. If this game were in Lubbock, I would absolutely be taking Texas Tech. But this game is in front of the mighty Utah student section, in Rice-Eccles Stadium, in Great Salt Lake City, in the elevation. So I will be taking the Utah Utes -3.5. I'm George Wrighster, George Wrighster's College Football Podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, get notifications, and tell a friend about the show.